Welcome to the Gentleman's Guide to Gaming and part 5 and 6 of Final Bout, one of the Curseborne RPGs I have been running. I am currently running 3 campaigns of Curseborne for 3 different groups, and Final Bout is one of them. And because of the number of videos I've been putting out on this channel lately, I haven't had time to do a Final Bout recap immediately following the game like I did previously. So much as I did with my Virgin Territory recap last week, you're going to get parts 5 and 6 in this one video. Now, just to explain for anyone who has missed it, Final Bout is a story where our crew of Accursed went to see a high-profile boxing match. Not really a sporting event, more of a spectacle, where the retired Antonio Bellegarde was to duke it out with popular youth influencer Mazmark, and to everyone's surprise, Antonio Bellegarde not only knocked Mazmark out, but caused him to suffer a brain hemorrhage there and then. Subsequently, Antonio Bellegarde appears to have doubled and then disintegrated. The root cause of all of this seems to be tied to what the crew are considering a demon in the outside by the name of Ixtli that feeds on fear, suffering, and pain. And the damage caused to Mazmark and the many, many fans of Mazmark who are now afraid for their icon is strengthening Ixtli and widening the rift between Junction City and the outside. That's the root of it. If you want all the details, and there are many, including lots of characters that I've not mentioned in that very, very brief recap, do check out my previous videos in this series. Now, the crew had a decision to make. How were they going to combat Ixtli? Because fear was on the increase. Well, they decided they were going to host a concert. They were going to go for the absolute joy division, not actual joy division, that wouldn't be terribly joyful, but the joy division approach of we're going to host a gig at the Riverside Theatre where the boxing match occurred. We are going to bring happiness. We're going to bring relief to the people, to the fans of Mazmark, who will no doubt flood in because this is where their icon was knocked out, and they may host a vigil for him. They may hold up their candles and lighters and so on for Mazmark. And they'll play some music, some good tunes, while at the same time elevating their own standing, especially in the case of our Sphinx, Zayden Shaw, and his band Celestial Sphere, and Gene Tavers, our poltergeist and host of a public access horror show, as well as a YouTube spin-off. So, there was everything to play for here. Unfortunately, the band broke down rapidly. Celestial Sphere, it seems, is suffering some internal problems, with Connor calling out the bass player, Cullen, as no longer being able to keep time or rhythm with the rest of the band. Unfortunately, Lucian, our unburdened sorcerer and their sound engineer, agreed, and this caused Cullen to get in his face before storming out, followed by Karina, his sister. Now, this meant that the band was now short a singer and a bass player. By this point, the band were already booked. The concert is supposed to be going ahead. They are down half of their number. To say that Zayden and Lucian were not on good terms after this would be an understatement, but Lucian had various plans up his sleeve. He's a very talented sound engineer as well as a sorcerer. So, let's see what happens. Meanwhile, Gene Tavers, our poltergeist, was set counter to his family's urges to spread joy and harmony and enthusiasm within the crowd at the Riverside Theatre, and decided that the best way of doing that would be to get in touch with some of the mavens of the cities. He knows one, Oscar Markstrom, who with his crew showed up. Oscar is an old vaudeville performer, and unfortunately, even though being booked as something of a warm-up act, failed spectacularly at the task while trying to impress Jean and Evelyn, our Gaki, Hungry, rather stuck in the 1920s, it's fair to say, with Oscar Markstrom, so Evelyn decided to take the view of let's lock Oscar in the cupboard and come up with a plan B. Evelyn wasn't only having to deal with the talent, she was also very worried about the whereabouts of her frenemy, Nina Hartshorn, a Sphinx who's appeared repeatedly during this game, because she was going to come along. She was invited to either support or celebrate the humiliations of Evelyn during this event. And while her crew showed up, she did not. What's more, she's not even answering her phone. Given that she had very recently left a message for Evelyn explaining that someone knows the truth, someone knows what they did, because once upon a time Evelyn and Nina were in a crew together that resulted, their activities when they overreached resulted in the rest of the crew being annihilated. They decided to keep as a secret pact between themselves. This is all character background stuff. It's appeared occasionally during this campaign. Well, Nina seems to be implying someone knew about it, someone had discovered what had happened, and now she's gone. So Evelyn is rather distracted from what's going on. Simon, meanwhile, our outcast keeper of the broken vine, was operating as security, aware that Ixtli wouldn't want this plan to go off without a hitch, has been patrolling the Riverside Theatre with his buddy, Lopez, and a similar outcast, because he was aware, Simon detected there was a liminal breach in the theatre, and while Lopez was helping him with security, they stumbled upon reports that hobgobs, creatures that seep in from the outside, were present. Indeed, as the concert began, Simon discovered two of them killing a man in a restroom, and he had to wrestle the hobgobs, throw them aside, pulverize them into the tiles. Another person, another theatre goer, shall we say, or music enthusiast, showed up, and Simon was forced to awe and confuse the individual, convincing this guy that this was all part of the act. The act has extended to the restroom, because Celestial Sphere's show was going better than, I have to say, as story guide I anticipated by this point. The band had been cut in half, as we've established, but this is where Gene Taver's long-suffering camera operator kind of helped save the day. You see, while Forrester, the camera operator, has been a source of humiliation and embarrassment from time to time, he showed up with his estranged daughter, Fiona, and through the expenditure, well, in fact, through a wicked success, it turns out that she is something of a talented musician herself. She wanted to come along because she's a big Masmark fan, wanted to take part in this sort of candle-holding, lighter-holding tribute prayer for Masmark's health while all of this was going on. And, well, Gene suggested, why don't we put the girl on stage? Why don't we push her up? And, she can perform, and maybe it'll make her love me again. And you know what? They decided to do it, and by some dark miracle, she was actually good at it. Won over the crowd. So while everything was going to plan within the auditorium, in the theatre itself, hobgobs, basically gremlins, were seeping out all over the place, causing terror, because Ixtli knows, with the couple of thousand people locked in this theatre, if a majority of them can start experiencing sheer terror, finally it will be able to pour into this world again. So, after Gene announced the band very effectively before they went on stage, and Zayden performed a very successful 25-minute drum solo, Evelyn summoned a phantasm just to get a sense of where the threats were in the theatre, and to her horror, summoned Masmark. Let me remind you, one of the reasons behind all the terror that's occurring in Junction City right now is because this youth influencer, Masmark, with his energy juice, was killed suddenly, or brain damaged suddenly, in the ring before a host of his fans. To the knowledge of the various members of our crew, he has been in hospital, in critical condition, but stable. Well, after summoning a phantasm, which as a Gaki, Evelyn can do pretty easily, she discovered, oh, he's dead. So she panicked. She rushed backstage to tell everyone, because as soon as news gets to the theatre that Masmark is dead, this theatre is going to be filled with wailing teenage girls who are absolutely bereft of the fact that their icon, their legend, Masmark, has died. And so she got to Gene and between the two of them, they decided he's got to get to the hospital. He's got to possess Mazmark's body. He's got to get Mazmark here. He's got to get Mazmark to appear on stage and show that, no, he's not dead at all. And so they tore off to the hospital, leaving the band in another interminable drum solo. The mob of influencers that was surrounding the hospital, including Bro Man, Mazmark's bro, made it very difficult for our characters to access him, but luckily Gene by this point was purely spectral. He had left his actual body back in the car, and so using his creepy doll spell, he was able to resurrect Mazmark's body before ultimately, and power up, this was what creepy doll was used for, powering up the life support machines. So while there was a flat line there, he was able to make it go beep again rhythmically before he then possessed Mazmark's body, made him sit up. All of these idiots with their phones recorded the naked, dead Mazmark sitting up naked, as I say. At this point, a strange thing happened. You see, Gene has been carrying a cocktail stick around with him for quite some time, and for a while the player has had, in his aspirations, find a use for this cocktail stick. So as a doctor was trying to insist that you can't leave the hospital. You've just been declared dead. It's a miracle you're back to life, but we need to monitor you. He decided he would impale the doctor through the tongue with a cocktail stick, so therefore fulfilling his aspiration. Good work, player. And so, Evelyn and Gene as Mazmark tore back to the theatre, but would it be too late? Because as we enter session 6, things seem to be taking a downturn. You see, word is spreading through the auditorium that Mazmark had just died, and there was mixed messages that Mazmark had suddenly experienced a Jesus Christ-like resurrection. No one was really certain, but with that uncertainty came fear. Plus, more and more hobgobs were spilling into the theatre. Things were getting out of control. Ixtli-Jocatil was growing stronger. Gene arrived as Mazmark, and with the phantasm of Mazmark accompanying, insulting the poltergeist until Evelyn commanded him with her magic to grovelingly apologise. Gene entered the dressing room, adorned himself in Bellegarde's boxing gear, which was still there from the event, and for some reason Forrester, Gene's camera operator, could just see straight through this flesh disguise and said, "Oh, hey boss, you're looking good. You're a good guy." And he thanked him for reuniting Gene with his daughter, a small flicker of hope growing in that. Well, Lucian in the sound booth right now was going all out in trying to distract the audience with confetti, firework, glitter, strobes, lasers, anything that can keep their minds off of the death of their hero. And it's during all of this that Gene strides on stage as Mazmark and leads the crowd in a celebration of juice, Mazmark's energy drink, before taking off his robe and pissing on it publicly, because this is Antonio Bellegarde's robe. He's saying, "This man thought he could defeat me. I am not defeated. This is what I think of him." Where many of us would consider such an act puerile, even disgusting, the girls in the audience lapped it up figuratively, and while confused at first, they grew into rapturous applause and good feeling. Grill Vogel of MTV interviewed him, and he name-dropped Gene Tavers, of course. Gene used this as a platform for self-elevation. And while all of this was going on, Zayden continued to play the drums and badmouth MTV. Lucian was fully into letting all this pyro and ballyhoo take place while gremlins were actually pouring out in the sound studio, but he was so concentrating on his job he didn't care about any of that. He unleashed a hallucination of Mazmark playing a saxophone on stage. If you've ever seen The Lost Boys, you can probably imagine the image, but this is before Mazmark, Gene Tavers, arrived. When MTV's Grill Vogel and Dune Struts wanted an interview with him, Evelyn had arrived and basically commanded them to leave. Lucian was denied fame once again. Lucian kept the only CD recording of this event and told Dune that this is what music is now. All this pyro and ballyhoo, love it or leave it. And he doesn't want to contact with MTV. He doesn't want to sell out, apparently. So, They now have the only sound recording of this horrific event, which seems to be going very well now. Simon McDaniel discovered more hobgobs, including behind the bar in the theatre, about to set fire to 2 bodies of bar stewards they've killed and the entire area. There were 3 stunned girls watching, witnessing this, filming it. McDaniel, Simon, decided to adopt his true form to grapple the hobgob. And more people, therefore, saw something they could not explain. Therefore, while in the auditorium joy is pervasive, in the reception area fear is spreading, hysteria with it. He stunned the hobgob, and with Evelyn's help, as she arrived, paralysed him so he could be taken from the venue. Indeed, Simon McDaniel, after receiving a distress call from Lopez, sent Evelyn to the cloakroom to see what was going on. You see, Simon had no way of resolving his damnation without getting off the premises, which would have made the entire place more risky. He couldn't get to the cloakroom where the liminal breach was, and so he needed to exit, and he needed to send Evelyn to deal with it. So Evelyn headed to the cloakroom, where a terrified Lopez was able to see into the eye of Ixtlilxochitl. She passed through the liminality, and, once there, hit Ixie like a comet, preventing his movement. So, Evelyn, having booted down the door, fetched a Pepsi for Lucian, getting caught up in the lobby chaos, going to the cloakroom, entering the liminality, confronting Ixtlilxochitl. It was here he appeared bloated and tired, and Ixtlilxochitl was very gloaty, very arrogant, saying, I have been sated, and soon I will pour through. Subjugate yourself to me. Allow me to complete this, and I will even tell you where your friend Nina has gone. Well, she called his bluff, because Evelyn's just come from the concert where there are a lot of screaming girls, but they're not screaming in fear, they're screaming in joy at having seen their hero Mazmat piss all over a robe for some bizarre reason. Believe me, as story guide, I don't quite understand it. And even though, he said he would tell her where Nina was if she and her crew left the theatre, she called bullshit. His skin sloughed off at this, revealing him for the emaciated wreck he is. He had basically put everything, gambled everything on the theatre going up in flames of fear, and somehow this crew had turned it around to be a pyre of joy. So, wearing the Aztec mask that she had liberated from Grace Prendergast's old curiosity shop, she headbutted the skull and cracked it. And as Simon McDaniel arrived, she reached into Ixtlilxochitl's ribcage, pulled out his withered grey heart, and as the Aztec was constantly referring to her as a heart-eater, despite the fact she's a Gaki, she decided there would be some poetic irony in chewing the heart before this god. The outside started folding in on itself. McDaniel and Evelyn escaped just in time. It would seem that the event is at an end. The concert was a success. Mazmark has been resurrected, at least as far as the young women of Junction City are concerned. Jean Towers' star is on the rise. Ixtlilxochitl has been disintegrated, maybe destroyed forever. Maybe our crew have done good here. Hell, they even have a CD recording of the event so they can make some money off the copies. But what will happen next? Well, that will depend entirely on the crew and the direction they head in. Nina Hartshorn is missing. And is this truly the end of this encounter with this particular outside, this liminality, this outsider? We shall find out. But I want to say thank you so much to the players who may well watch this recap, and I want to say thank you so much to you, viewers, who watch along. I hope that these give you inspiration for your Curseborne games. Sometimes they go in strange directions, as this one did. But I find the game so much fun to run, and I get nothing but positive feedback from the players who are playing it. It seems to provide them with a lot of inspiration, a lot of ideas, and, well, a lot of reasons to enjoy their gaming. So I hope the same goes for you. I hope you give it a go, and if you haven't backed Curseborne yet, haven't pre-ordered it, you can do so. It's on BackerKit. I'll make sure it's linked below. And in the meantime, I want to say again, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.